Okay, let me know if there are problems with that. Hi, hello, thank you very much for having me. So first of all, I've been ill, and I'm a Mancunian, I'm from Manchester, so any problems with anything, I will be making mistakes, and I will have a bit of an accent, so please interject and ask me anything as we go, especially burning questions. So I'll split my presentation into 5 parts. First, my take on the humanising era, as it's framed for this event. Then first, a key obstacle, that's what I refer to as candy floss. Then move into solutions, and I prefer to parsnips, a bit more on parsnips, and then wrapping up with 2-3 slides. So this era that's it's been talked about, this new era of sustainability. For me, it goes right back to, well, there's so many people you can talk about, but some of my heroes, my favourites are Ildefonso Cerda in Spain, back in 1867, who wrote this, was the first real systematic attempt to theorise a big theory of sustainability for all sorts of things. And then 100 years later, Jane Jacobs, William White, and then I was really lucky then to work for 5 years for a consultancy called Urbed up in Manchester, and we did it was very creative and highly research-led practices, which is quite unusual, especially advocates of community-led design, and to the extreme where we'd actually take a London route master bus out into estates and we'd try and get people on board to talk about design. Usually they want to talk about the bus, not design so much, but that's the kind of thing we did, and it was very much based on the work of especially Sir Richard Badgers towards the urban renaissance, and it was design rooted in logic, definitely, intuition and aspiration, and absolutely I really enjoyed that. I started to feel a bit uncomfortable though, because so much of the time, although you might have a very logical idea, very often what you're advocating is based in aspiration, your values, and your intuition, perhaps things that you've learned from the past. And this used to, well, I perceived it as me being this pedantic person who would be accused of dancing around semantics and whatnot, and didn't always go down well with my colleagues. But then 2008, 2009, a few of us got made redundant, and a lot of us had plan B. My plan B was to do a PhD, and I had the good fortune of meeting someone called Felicia Huppert, and her background is in neuro-psychology, and she still is director of the Wellbeing Institute, and basically I soon started to realise that pedanticism wasn't necessarily that trivial, and I was onto some things, and certainly some of those things were fundamental, and actually I was not that bad. On the spectrum, I was nowhere near as forensic or as systematic as someone like Felicia, and I had a lot to learn. But it was going from perceiving myself as being pedantic type to someone who's learning to be forensic and scientific. So that was a bit of a personal excursion, if you like. Then Felicia introduced me to this diagram. This is the kind of diagram that underpins most of the research I've been doing with it, and also the translation work we do with BuroHappold as well. And that is that for the general population, mental health can be thought of as operating on a single spectrum, having 4 kind of key categories. At one end you have people with mental disorders, especially anxiety and depression. Moving along from there you have languishing, people who don't necessarily fulfill a clinical diagnosis, but nonetheless experience these things day to day, and it affects their lives. Then you have the vast majority of the population in the middle there that just have average, moderately good mental health, and flourishing at the top. Flourishing being a combination of hedonic and eudaimonic well-being, so two key types of well-being. And traditionally, it was maybe 100 years or more, we kind of concentrated on especially getting people at one end, the disorders end, towards the middle, and preventing people sliding from the middle towards the disorders. But what Felicia taught me, and what I try to instill in my work, is how we actually want to shunt the whole spectrum across everyone. And that's a mixture of preventing things, bad things, and also promoting good stuff. So prevention and promotion. And within positive psychology, introduced me to this strapline, this idea of having 51% of all populations flourishing by 2050. So a bit of context, within the UK, it's estimated about 20% of the population are flourishing. You go to places like Denmark and Northern Europe, it's more like 40% are already getting up towards that 2050. So you've got 51%. And so just one slide, just to say, in terms of the era and then how, what excites me most is how that early knowledge is now being translated into what I call health and wellbeing decision aids. So there's a flurry of things happening at the moment. There's the building standard. There's a new community building standard, which is more about neighbourhood scale. There's there's health impact assessments been around for a while. The C40s group are doing a great deal on climate change, but also how that impacts on health, less so on well-being. I think well-being, probably the well standard, is the one to look at. So it feels like an exciting time. But in order for these tools to be effective, we need to to shunt the spectrum, if you like, across and have maximum impact. We need to know what really works. We need to understand the causality, and to what extent these different things work as well. So this is where I get to the problem, candy floss idea. So candy floss is a criticism that's plagued well-being for a long time, over 20, 30 years. It's this idea that it's all very sweet, there's research, but it's not got much substance. And that's been addressed, I think, quite strongly within well-being more generally. But then when you look at urban well-being and how it's come across into the built environment, I feel like that's kind of where we're at with it at the moment. And it's a bit of a problem. So for me, Johannes hits one of the key nails on the head. Johannes is a quantum physicist who's defected over to well-being, and he talks about well-being being more complex than quantum physics, and quite nicely, the questions are raised are usually twice as interesting. So this is an example of complexity, and it isn't well-being. This is for obesity, so it's a physical health outcome rather than mental health, and obesity is at the middle. This is the product of a UK government foresight project going back about 10 years now. And basically, it shows here that you've got 108 factors, all thought to be causing obesity at the centre there. Some more peripheral, indirect causes, some closer and more direct. Lots of links between those, some of them positive, some of them negative, so some of them having really negative unintended consequences. Lots to look at, and lots of dynamism in there. But what I found so fascinating about what they did with this, it was actually by embracing that complexity, it enabled them to identify key pathways, key nodes in the system, key pivot points, key leverage points, and identify key strategy approaches to obesity in this case. And so, going back and abstracting it in terms of the key domains, they broke it down to several domains. I think it was 7 or 8, and one of them is the physical environment, the one that as designer we're probably most interested in. So, as you can see here, it's all sorts of different factors and connect with other domains, etc. But I've just teased out one, the dominance of motorised traffic, and that's clearly a real opportunity. But to identify how the key leverages in that system might work through to the middle, to obesity, is tricky. There's lots of disentangle. There's so many confounding factors. There's so many things going on. There's so many factors at play. But we had a go. As it turns out, it was one of Gary's projects. It's Accordia in Cambridge. It's a project that's been showered with awards. So it's been showered with awards, commendations, etc. And one of which is the Sterling Prize, one of the biggest prizes for architecture. And as far as I could tell, no one actually asked anyone what it's like to live there, at least not certainly in a systematic sense. And so what we did was a cross-sectional study, which is basically looking at how things might coexist. So in this case, the instance of reduced motorised traffic, it's an intervention from Holland, it's called home zones, and how that might coexist with wellbeing outcomes or not. And we compared this to a matched neighbourhood, which had very similar socio-demographics and was matched in lots of different ways, but crucially didn't have home zones and some of the other things that Gary did with the landscaping, etc. And to cut a long story short, with mixed findings, we didn't find that flourishing is correlated with this multi-award winning neighbourhood, and I'm not going to dwell on that. There's different interpretations of that. I'm going to stick with the behaviours, because what we did find was the key wellbeing behaviours, especially connecting with each other, taking notice of the environment, being physically active, really big drivers of sustained positive mental health. And they were linked, they were correlated with these home zones and these spaces, especially amongst children and teenagers. But correlation doesn't always equal causation. And this isn't deliberately quite an extreme example, and this is real data. I'm not going to, for 1 minute, suggest that this has the same theoretical basis as home zones supporting children being physically active. But even though we were really trying to be careful about confounding factors, there's still things that need to be ruled out, especially, for instance, in the case of accord year, which is, for instance, it's quite possible that the people and the families that go to accord year are actually, they have a predisposition to be physically active. So there's a strong chance that actually what we're seeing is their kind of predisposition to be sociable and physically active, rather than the environment making that in that way, or at least part of it that is explained. So we, as well as some cross-sectional work, we've also done some what are called natural experiments. So going out into the real world, and in this case, rather than just looking at if things coexist, manipulating something in the environment to see if it causes that, a change in behaviour. So this was the highlight of my PhD, definitely. I had a community-led intervention in Manchester, and basically we took what was a really awful space, turned it into something that the community really valued, and they put all sorts of artwork in, seating, free Wi-Fi, etc. And we saw some real distinct, statistically significant and large changes in behaviour, especially connecting with others and taking notice. Oh, so there seems to be something going on with the slides here with the formatting. I hope you can still read it. So that we're really proud of that work, the cross-sectional study and the natural experiment. But there's still lots to be done. It might sound weird in criticising my own work, but basically, we then, a third key paper that we published recently was a review of the gold standard, the best stuff out there in terms of these natural experiments. And we were looking especially for physical activity outcomes. And we looked at a variety of different interventions, so it could be bike lanes, it could be nature trails, skateboard parks. And we took what's called a Cochrane risk and bias tool and applied these standards to the best studies out there. And what we found was 80% of these studies, the best studies, were either critically biased, and the other 20% were seriously biased. And as you can imagine, this ruffled a few feathers. But it's prompted a healthy debate, a healthy and respectful debate about the standards of research that we need to disentangle that complexity that I talked about earlier. And we were really pleased to find out in August we won Best Review of 2016. So the solution, parsnips, that was all about the problems and the issues, especially with the research side. Parsnips about giving people something better to chew on. The antidote to candy floss. And really what that means, if you're being a bit more sensible, it's about a hierarchy of evidence, introducing a hierarchy of evidence to design practice. Now, I believe there are one or two exceptions, for instance in transport engineering, there is a hierarchy, but by and large we don't have one. So this is something we introduced in some of our work with BuroHappold, and in this case it's a simple hierarchy, three levels. At the top there, probable, this is really strong evidence. This stuff that you can say to developers, to policymakers, gives you a really strong sense of assurance that the money you're going to spend or the things you're going to do are going to have probable impact on health, well-being outcomes. Plausible, medium, and aspirational. Aspirational, it's more about ideas and some cross-sectional studies and people's opinions. And of course the hierarchy is continually evolving. It's this continual test, learn, adapt approach that we need to nurture. And as the insight grows, the knowledge ecosystem expands. But right now, for me, we're kind of operating at this level here, at the bottom here. Lots of candy floss. Don't get me wrong, I like candy floss, but you can have too much. We need more parsnips. And ideally we want a paradigm that's operating, it's packed full of parsnips, each addressing especially this kind of confounding issue, admirably. And I should say at this point that other nutritious metaphors are available. I just love parsnips. Just very reflective thing. I've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to speed up. Right, so again, not saying that there aren't parsnips already out there. I'm pretty sure Gary's going to talk about, especially research on nature, and this is just one example from a meta-analysis of RCTs. But yeah, addressing this problem. So this is something we're trying to do in Manchester. We've won some money from 2 different funders, and it starts from a position of humility and openness. Like what are these confidence standards? Can we realistically address them? And that's what we're trying to do. So we're doing that within natural experiments, as a bit like the one I described before in Manchester, on 2 large greening grants. But we're also trying to open it up to a debate. It's prompted a debate, and we're trying to do a debate paper and open that as a more of an inclusive debate, including not just academics but politicians as well, and general public. On the kind of more the policy side, the practitioner side, demand side, if you like. Again, for me, it starts from a position of humility and openness, and especially building on a debate started here in UCL by someone called Stephen Marshall, who wrote a really good paper on urban design as a pseudoscience. It's something I think it needs revisiting and looking. It needs us looking sometimes quite deep and hard at our own cognitive biases, our own ideology, and yeah, it can be a bit complex, and disorientating, but it's well worthwhile. And so, wrapping up now, there's 2 or 3 slides. If we are going to achieve this, if we're going to strive for this 51% flourishing aspiration, and at the same time things like the 1.5 Paris Agreement on climate change, we need some more parsnips, we need less candy floss, and these decisions affect billions. Especially, how big is your city, how tall is your city, and for us, and for me especially, when I say us, I mean my co-researchers and colleagues, but especially for myself, the current literature is a bit fishy. There's, almost everything is a positive finding, but who's not everyone can be right. Who's most right? Who's wrong? Who's just plain wrong? to intervene effectively, we need to identify these key leverages in the system and understand these causes. I'm quoting Harry Burns, who said, "With will and with method, we will get there." And I don't for 1 minute, quibble on the will side of things. I think there's plenty of really good will and some great direction, but for me, the enthusiasm is way ahead of the evidence, and that's where we need lots of young people, such as yourselves, to help address this. We need, for me, a wellbeing, coherent science of cities. As Johannes says, it's more complex than quantum physics. We need a knowledge ecosystem that feeds on a really healthy diet, hierarchy, packed with parsnips, as I said. And it's not to say that we reject it. Studies because of any probability that they might be wrong. Of course not. Cochrane studies can be wrong too, but it's less likely. For us, as I say, especially what we're doing with Manchester, we believe is an ethical imperative to strive for these standards, and that's what we're doing. This is a really big one because it winds up practitioners